Welcome to the Nomi Bachar podcast. Her mission is to help people reach their true potential, transform limitations, and achieve a life of fulfilling success. Nomi is a human potential expert, motivational speaker, and trained psychotherapist who created the highly acclaimed method and program Gates of Power. She is the author of the best-selling book Gates of Power, Actualize Your True Self, and founder of White Cedar Institute for Expanded Living.
Hi, I'm Nomi, and today I want to talk to you about being the leader of your life. We all want to be the leader of our life, and many times we don't feel that we are. Some other times we feel like we are the victim of our life. What is the secret of feeling, being, acting like the leader of your life? More and more people are training themselves to be the leaders of their life. They want to be coached, they want to be mentored, they want to get tools and grow into that. The movement towards being self-reliant, self-motivated, self-educated, self-empowered is really a dominant color in our modern culture, and it's wonderful that it is so. But we still have a lot of difficulties doing that. And we want to know why, and we want to understand what is the direct road there, because we don't want to waste a lot of time. We want to get there as fast as we can, since life is ticking. The question I want to pose to you is, do you recognize that part, the inner leader, inside of yourself? And if you do you know how to step into those shoes of that part of yourself? And do you know how to walk in those shoes? Sometimes we know about it kind of theoretically. We feel that there is a power, there is a certain power that lives within us, or some spiritual understanding. Some people call it the higher self. I don't actually call it that way, but we do have a sense of it. But between having a sense of it and actually living it, living within it, acting from there, feeling from there, living from there, thinking from there, that there is a big difference. This part of you that I'm calling your inner leader, I also call it your expanded self, is your guide. It is your healer. It is your inner parent. It is the one that holds in its consciousness your optimal life, the vision of your optimal life, and the path for fulfilling your purpose and your destination. So this is the big guy inside of you. It knows, the big guy, the big girl, the big entity within you that can take you where you really, your soul, your spirit, wants to go. As I said before, a lot of us have a sense of our personal power and our wisdom, but many times we're not living from there. We're not leading our life from there. So we need to know how to tap into that part. We need to know how to strengthen that part of us. And we need to know what are the other parts of us that, like our emotional self, our defensive self, these parts are not really leadership material. They're there, we love them, they're fine, but they're not your leader. So in this series, I want to talk to you about ways, exercises, actions, meditations, insights that you can do, that you can experience to ground you in your inner leader and get the most tools that you can get to create your inner leader as a strong, powerful, expressive, direct, onward, forging inner leader. We'll talk more. I asked you, do you live from your inner leader? And when I say, do you live from your inner leader, I mean, do you feel like a leader? Are you acting like a leader? Are you thinking as a leader? Are you expressing yourself as a leader? Unfortunately, I have to say that 90% of people are not. And that includes people in high positions, executives, politicians, leaders of organizations. We all want to be the leader of our life and at work, in our communities, but there is a big but. And I want to tell you 3 very important points within this but. Number 1, we don't really know that part of us, the inner leader. I want to say there are 3 parts within us, and I will talk about that later. And one of those parts, which I call our expanded self, is our inner leader. And as I said, we don't really know that part that well. So we won't be able to act and be that if we don't know it. Number 2, even if we have a sense of it, we're not consistently in touch with it and consistently acting, feeling, being from it. And number 3, we're very distracted by the 2 other parts of us, our emotional self and our defensive self. And these 2, as much as they're needed and loved, they are neither one of them an inner leader. So what's the result? The result is that we are confined, constricted, and bogged down by the 2 other parts of us, and we don't get to be our expanded self, our inner leader. Okay, so now you're asking me and you're asking yourself, how do I get there? How do I connect to this part of me? And where is it? How do I do this? All good questions. And this series is all about that, to make these things very clear so that you can actually proceed and do that. Before I show you how to identify this part of you and how to ground yourself there and live from there, I need to tell you about your inner map. The map of your psyche, the map of your inner being, and the map of your life. I call all of that the inner map. You have a very individualized inner map, just like we all do. But there is also a blueprint of our human potential map that is actually common to all of us human beings. We all are born with that blueprint of our optimal state of being. So when you know what this optimal map is, and I will tell you what it is, and then when you know what your personal map is, and your personal map gets created through your experiences, your self-development, your beliefs, your defensive habits, and so on and so forth. So you need to put the optimal map alongside your current map and take a look so you can understand what is working for you, what is not working for you, why it's not working for you, where are you possibly stuck, what do you need to shift, and so on and so forth. And then you can start realigning yourself. And it helps to know where we're going. The maps are showing us how to get there, what needs to be done. This is what I'm going to talk about next time that I talk to you. I will show you the two maps, and I will show you where most of us get misaligned, and what do we need to do to match our current map to our optimal potential map. I'm looking forward. If you want to be the leader of your life, you need to know your inner map. You cannot go anywhere without a map. Just like a captain of a ship needs to know the map of the ocean, so to speak, to get his boat to where he wants to take it, we need to know what's going on inside of us and how to navigate. There are actually two inner maps that live inside of us. One is our human potential map, our optimal self, and the second one is our current map, experiences and possibly fears, insecurities, and of course mixed with our talents and skills and abilities and so on and so forth. We need to know the two maps so that we can navigate from the current map, which is most of the time with some limitations, the self-imposed limitations. We need to navigate from the current map to the optimal map. So I've created two diagrams to make this notion of the two inner maps clear to you, so it's visual. Let's look at the first diagram. This is you when you are absolutely actualized, when you are experiencing and expressing yourself totally. All the parts of your life are working and you are at peace and you are moving with very strong inner leadership, creating in your life everything that you want to create, manifesting everything that you want to manifest. That is the potential you. We're seeing a heptagon and we're seeing a pyramid in the middle. So imagine that this is you and your life. The center is your inner being. Your inner being has three different aspects. One is your emotional self. This is where all your emotions live, all your emotional experiences, past, present, and possibly future. This is the ocean of emotion. To the right, you have your defensive self. This is the part of you that watches over your survival. It is where all your defensive structure, your survival structure lives. All your habits of how you protect yourself and make sure that you're okay. On the top, you have your expanded self. You can think about it as a drop of cosmic wisdom and knowledge sitting inside of you. This is your wisdom self. That part of you has infinite wisdom, believe it or not, intuition, and compassion, ability to be neutral in your thinking, and so on and so forth. So that part of you sits at the top and should be the leader of your life. We're talking about the optimal you. When you reach there, That's what happens. Now, what is it that we see around the pyramid, which is your inner being with those three aspects of yourself? We see 7 sides. These are the facets of your life. I also call them gates. Gates because they are openings, they're channels, they're portals through which your inner being expresses itself to the world, and the world comes in to impact you. So there is a movement of energy going from you out, from out in. Ideally, your inner being is harmonized, peaceful. Everybody's working together. All the 3 aspects are working together under the leadership of your expanded self. The energy is moving fine. And that energy is flowing nicely through those 7 areas of your life, those gates. Now, let me take a minute and just explain what the gates are. The first gate that you see is the gate of the body. Obviously, your inner being is expressing itself through the body. And when everything is going well and the energy is flowing, the body is strong, the body is expressive. Then you have the gate of emotions. Emotions are very important, and we want them to flow, and flow positively and freely, spontaneously. You want emotions that are difficult to be resolved and released, and positive emotions to be expressed. Then we have the gate of dialogue, the gate of relationships with yourself and others. Obviously, we all want positive, intimate, lovely, loving relationship. Then we have the gate of creative expression. We all want to be creative, expressive. We all want to be joyful, playful, have fun. That's that gate. Then you have the gate of life path. Life path means your purpose. What do you want to create? How do you want to contribute? What are the important elements in your life that you want to be dedicated to? This is your life path. And then you have the gate of silence, prayer and meditation. Ideally, you want to be able to be very much in tune, be able to meditate and receive spiritual messages, guidance, and so on and so forth. And the last gate is the gate of knowledge. Knowledge is power, as we all know. And we want to continuously be able to assimilate and be open to new knowledge about life, about ourselves, about the universe, about history, about art, anything and everything. Everything teaches us about life. This is our potential as human beings. Our potential is to be powerful inside, led by our expanded self, and all the parts of our life can be open, vibrant, energized, and expressive. We all want to get there because this is what we were meant to be. Next video, I'm going to speak to you about your current map and how you can walk the path from your current map, which will not look as ideal as this one. How can you walk from there to here? I have created a way to take you step by step. We all want to be the leaders of our life. To be able to do that, we need to be dedicated to actually becoming the leader of our life and leaders in general. Last time I spoke to you about the human potential map that I have designed. Obviously, if you want to be a leader, you want to optimize your potential. That map is a very important map to achieve, to look forward to achieve. Take a look at the details if you have not looked at it. Today, we are talking about our current map, which is different from our optimal. The whole process of self-transformation is all about taking ourselves from our current map to our optimal map. When people are dedicated to it, they actually go step by step to reach that. Even if they never absolutely reach that, the journey is what matters. Potentially, we have all three aspects of ourselves: our emotional self, our defensive self, and our expanded self work together in harmony under the leadership of the expanded self. The energy is strong, bright, open, expressive, and as a result of that, all the gates, which are the 7 areas of life, are open, vibrant. In the current map, things look a little different. I have worked for the last 26 years with hundreds of people. What I saw as a result of looking at many people's map, 2 elements repeat themselves in 95% of the people. And I want to talk to you about those 2 elements because I am sure they're showing up in your current map. The first and the most important element in your current map is most people lead their life from their defensive self, not from their expanded self. Your defensive self is the part of you, one of the 3 aspects, the part of you that is very concerned about your survival. It's where all your defensive structure lives, all your defensive behavior. This part is created very early in life. Our emotional self is very sensitive, it's emotional, and it gets bruised by life, by parents, by siblings, by teachers, by life. And at a very early age, we start cultivating our defensive structure in order to protect our emotional and physical well-being. And that structure depends on the severity of the bruising in the emotional self. We maintain this leadership from a defensive place throughout our life. People have all kinds of creative defensive structures that they've created for themselves to protect themselves. There are people who are perfectionists, excellers. They have to be good at everything. They must be perfect. That's a defensive way of being. There are people who are caretaking others. They are going to help. They are going to do anything to take care of the people around them, many times at the expense of their own well-being. The caretakers. There are people who are charmers, jokesters. People are always on, were always full of smiles. That's a defensive structure. There are people who are isolators. They're shut down. They live in a very lonely place, and they don't let anybody actually know who they are. And there are people who are aggressors, dominators, controllers. So as you can see, there is a variety of ways to protect ourselves, and most of us have a main characteristic with some tinges of other elements. Okay, so we got bruised. We cultivated this very intricate structure of a defensive self, and we survived and continued. Now, you can say, what's the problem with that? it's good. I mean, I've survived and I'm doing well. What is not so good about that is that when you are led from a defensive place, you're always tight and uptight, anxious on some level, even if you don't feel it in the daily, in your daily life. There is a tightness. There is a certain kind of concern, fear, worry about your survival. Even if your survival is not threatened in any shape or form, it doesn't let your emotional self be free, expressive, joyful, creative, silly, loving, all the things that your emotional self wants to be. And it tightens on your expanded self. It doesn't let your expanded self be the visionary and the spiritual leader of your life. So this defensive self is a little bit like a tyrant, and what that does, it constricts your inner being. And when that happens, all your gates, all these 7 areas of life are affected. When you're tight and uptight, it's going to show in your body. It's going to show in the gate of emotions. It's going to show in your relationships because you're not free to relate. It's going to show in your creative expression. You're not free. You're not letting yourself be totally free because you're watching, you're guarding. You're not going to be as effective on your life path, which is walking towards the fulfillment of your purpose in life. And you're not going to be good in the gate of silence. You won't be able to have a meditative mind. And the gate of knowledge gets tainted too. So all these areas of life get affected. This is why in this work that I do with people, we need to learn to shift the positions. Instead of having the defensive self be at the top of the pyramid, we need to learn to bring the expanded self and make that part of us the leader, which is not easy at all. We're very used to our defensive self. It has protected us all this time, and we're very attached to it. So that shift is not easy. I will talk about that a little more. How do we in this work, Gates of Power, how do we do it? What are the processes, the exercises that help us make that shift? Without that, you are not really a leader of your life. There are things that are in the way, obstacles. I am talking about the inner obstacles in these videos, the last few videos that I made. Those inner obstacles are fears, self-doubts, insecurities, confusion, lack of focus, and defensive patterns. All these are in the way of us being everything that we can be and manifesting everything that we want to manifest. I have created a Gates of Power method and program to take people from confined state of being to an optimal state of being, actualized potential. And I think that actualizing our talent, our passions, our abilities, and sharing it with others is the ultimate purpose of our life. So we need to do that, since that gives us tremendous amount of fulfillment and joy. The big question is how? How do we do that? How do we take ourselves from a confined place where we are trapped within our insecurities, fears, and all the other obstacles, and move ourselves, shift ourselves into an optimized, expanded, actualized state of being? Gates of Power is one of the most comprehensive, effective, and holistic paths that you can find to do just that. Take yourself into an actualized state of being. In my last video, I explained that the most important inner shift is to take your expanded self, which is one part of the three aspects that you have within you, to take that part and make that the leader of your life. Because it is the most wise, spiritually connected, and intuitive part of you, it is the most suitable part to be your inner leader and the leader of your life. Because we were bruised, and those bruises of life, and everybody gets bruised to some degree, those bruises are emotional patterns that sit inside of our emotional self. Because of that, our defensive self took a very protective stand to make sure that we are safe and that we never get hurt again. And it became the leader of our inner space. All of that is well and good when we're young and we don't have a sense of our expanded self. But after a certain age, I would say in our 20s, we need to begin to shift and take the expanded self and put that as the leader. Here are some ways that I do it when I work with my clients through the Gates of Power program. Number one, I help my clients differentiate and understand the three aspects inside of themselves. It's not enough to know that intellectually. It's not just an intellectual knowledge. You have to really, through meditations, exercises, and processes, you have to go within and really experience. Here is my emotional self. How do I feel here? What are the feelings that live here? How is that operating and affecting my body, my moods, my actions? Being in touch with our emotions, very, very important. This is your emotional self. Then people need to understand how their defensive self works. As I said, each one of us has a little bit of a different defensive self. And many people don't even know that they're operating from their defensive self because they don't really know that part of them. They're not conscious of that part of them. They are, let's say, controlling or caretaking or pleasing or appeasing, but they're not identifying that as their defensive self. So it's very important to know what's going on and understand our defensive self. And then obviously we need to know our expanded self. We need to really intimately experience that part of us. So as I said, number one is knowing all the different parts. You cannot take care of yourself if you don't know the different parts that live inside of you. Number two, I offer you, through meditations, again, exercises and processes, ways to really understand and feel your expanded self. That is your wisdom, your intuition, your spiritual understanding. And through those exercises, you get to know that part deeply. That is your inner leader. You need to know it. And you need to be able to be comfortably grounded in it. Number three, I give you techniques like the inner dialogue and the reparenting techniques to help your expanded self to be the best guide, leader, inner parent, and healer of yourself. Your expanded self needs to know all these tools to be able to heal your emotional self, and relax and normalize your defensive self. These two need to come to be more whole, relaxed, at peace. And all three need to unify under the leadership of your expanded self. Number 4, I teach you how to optimize, open up, and energize all 7 areas of your life. These areas are called gates. This is why the name Gates of Power. These are the channels of your inner being, and I teach you how to do that. I will go into that part in detail. Life. If we are not the leaders of our inner space, inner being, we cannot be the leader of our life. And to be able to do that, we have to learn some tools. We have to learn some ways of doing that. It's not something that we have naturally necessarily. If you are not the leader of your feelings, your actions, your behavior, your state of mind, you are a follower. You're actually a victim of your inner state. You are in survival mode. You're not in thriving mode. It's very important to establish a good leadership, inner leadership, and establish a strong inner sense of self. We need that to achieve the kind of fulfilling success and well-being that we all are so longing for. In this leadership series, I have been sharing with you principles and some tools to create that state of inner leadership, inner strength, and inner well-being. I use my method and my program, Gates of Power, to help people do just that. Gates of Power method is a very holistic and effective path to take you from compromised living to optimized thriving. You will be shown how to leverage your challenges, because your challenges can be a very great source of power for you. Challenges are not bad. They need to be utilized properly, and they can become power. So you leverage your challenges, you leverage your gifts, your talents, your abilities, and you create the best version of yourself. So you can create the best life that you dream and long for. That's the whole idea of this life. In the other videos, I spoke to you about the 3 aspects of the self, those 3 parts inside of us that need to be harmonized and need to be led by one specific part of us, which is our expanded self. So I spoke about how I coach people to identify that part, their expanded self, and I offer them a lot of tools how to give that part the ability to be the leader, the parent, the guide, the best friend of you. And you means all your other parts, which is your emotional self and your defensive self. So you have all these 3 parts of you. You have them working together, being nurtured, being healed, being strengthened by your expanded self. Today, I would like to mention the other very important component of Gates of Power method, and that is the 7 gates of power. What are those 7 gates of power? The 7 gates of power are the 7 areas of your life. You want to imagine yourself as a diamond. The diamond has 7 facets, and it has a brilliant light living within the diamond, which is the light of your spirit living within you. Now, those facets of the diamond need to be clear for you to be able to shine through. The 7 gates of power are the gate of the body, the gate of emotions, the gate of dialogue, which is your relationships with yourself and others, the gate of creative expression, gate of you being creative, you being spontaneous and enjoying yourself, playful, the gate of life path, which is the gate of understanding where you're going, what's your purpose in this life, what are your big lessons in this life, what is your contribution, the gate of silence, prayer, meditation, and spiritual understanding, and the gate of knowledge, the gate of learning anything new about yourself, about others, about life. All knowledge leads you to the knowledge of life and living. So these are the 7 gates. And as I said before, just like facets of a diamond, they all have to be cleared. They all have to be energized. Now, when we are leading from a defensive state, all these get affected. If you are being defensive, and you don't even know it sometimes, leading with a defensive state means you are going to be somewhat contracted and distrusting of yourself and others and life. That will affect your body. You will have tensions and stresses, and you might not know why they're there and how to get rid of them. Obviously, the gate of emotions is going to be affected. Your emotions are being blocked. You're leading your life defensively, so you're not going to let yourself feel your emotions freely. The gate of dialogue, relationships with self and others, is going to be affected because you're not being authentic. You're not being free. You're not being spontaneous. The gate of creative expression, of course, is going to be affected. You're not playing in life. You're not joyful. You're not free. The gate of life path, where are you going, what's your purpose, what's your contribution, definitely is affected because you're not really looking at that really. You're looking at how do I survive, how do I stay safe, how do I impress people. So that's a whole other state of mind. Gate of silence is affected. Gate is the gate of spiritual understanding and meditations, prayer. It's very hard to be quiet and still when you are confined, when you are stressed all the time, when you are worried, concerned. The gate of knowledge is also affected. So as you can see, all these gates are affected. We in the Gates of Power program clear and energize all these areas of life. They work together. They are very interconnected. So we work on them simultaneously. Everything is being optimized as we go along. And you need that to feel whole and strong. So this is a path that is the most comprehensive, holistic, and total that you can find. Everything